the headlines shocked the world. For the first time in modern history, Africa, once seen as a dependent market, has just overtaken the United States in trade growth, shifting over $2 trillion in global value toward the continent. This wasn't supposed to happen. For decades, the U.S. dominated trade routes, supply chains, and global markets. Africa was always treated as the consumer, not the competitor. But something extraordinary has happened, something that even Washington didn't see coming. Across Africa, a quiet economic revolution has been building. Massive infrastructure investments, inter-African trade deals, and new partnerships with China, India, and the Gulf states have created the world's fastest-growing trade bloc. From the bustling ports of Lagos to the new mega-industrial zones in Nairobi, from Ghana's digital trade hubs to South Africa's automotive exports, Africa is no longer trading for survival, it's trading for dominance. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, has unleashed a wave of economic integration unseen anywhere else. It connects 1.4 billion people across 54 nations into a single market worth more than $3.4 trillion, and growing fast. Meanwhile, the U.S., once the center of global commerce, is facing trade stagnation, rising debt, and crumbling infrastructure. As one African economist put it, for decades, America sold us finished goods. Now, we sell each other, and the world, everything we once imported. In just the past 2 years, African exports to other African nations have jumped by over 35%, while trade with Asia and BRICS members has exploded. New rail lines link Tanzania to Zambia. Gigantic ports in Djibouti and Nigeria now rival Singapore. And renewable energy plants in Egypt and Kenya are powering factories that export goods, not just raw materials, to the world. In the corridors of power in Washington and Brussels, alarm bells are ringing. Africa, long dismissed as an aid-dependent region, is now becoming a global trade powerhouse, and the West is losing control of the narrative. The era of dependency is over. The era of dominance is beginning. This transformation didn't happen overnight. For decades, Africa's vast wealth, gold, cobalt, lithium, oil, and agricultural power, flowed out of the continent in raw form. Western companies refined, processed, and profited. Africa was left with the crumbs. But the 2020s changed everything. First came the pandemic, which exposed just how fragile global supply chains really were. Western economies realized how much they depended on imports, and how little they could control when things went wrong. Then came the BRICS expansion, where African nations like Egypt, Ethiopia, and South Africa became key players in an economic alliance designed to counter Western dominance. Next was AfCFTA, a dream decades in the making, a free trade area connecting nearly every African nation, removing tariffs, and encouraging regional value chains. For the first time, African countries were trading directly with each other at scale, bypassing the dollar and Western intermediaries. When the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPSS, launched, it gave African businesses the ability to trade in local currencies. That one change struck at the heart of U.S. dominance, the dollar's monopoly on trade. Now, trade across Africa was cheaper, faster, and independent. In 2024, trade volume across the continent hit over $2 trillion, overtaking the U.S. trade growth rate. Analysts from Bloomberg and Reuters were stunned. They had underestimated Africa's economic rise, again. Meanwhile, Western powers began to panic. U.S. farmers complained about losing agricultural markets. European manufacturers faced stiff competition from cheaper African goods. And oil-rich nations like Nigeria and Angola stopped exporting crude to refine abroad. Instead, they built their own mega-refineries. For decades, the U.S. used trade leverage, sanctions, aid conditions, and IMF debt structures to keep nations aligned. But Africa's new financial independence, supported by China's infrastructure loans and Gulf investment funds, has made that leverage obsolete. As African economies grow, their consumption power grows too. That means a massive new middle class, hungry for locally made products, not foreign imports. Even U.S. corporations are quietly moving their production lines into Africa, hoping to benefit from the boom. Tesla, Huawei, and Ford are all expanding African operations, not out of charity, but survival. The irony? America, once the teacher of capitalism, is now learning from Africa's playbook. The story of Africa's $2 trillion trade revolution isn't just about economics. It's about power. For centuries, global trade was a one-way street, from Africa to the world. Today, that street has traffic moving in both directions. Washington may not admit it, but the balance of power has shifted. Africa is now setting its own prices, writing its own contracts, and building its own future. The question is no longer, can Africa compete? The question is, can the West keep up? Because in boardrooms across Lagos, Nairobi, and Cairo, the conversations have changed. The words foreign aid have been replaced with foreign investment. The term developing nations no longer applies. Africa is developing itself. And with a population projected to reach 2.5 billion by 2050, Africa's trade dominance is just beginning. The world's trade maps are being redrawn, not in Washington, not in Brussels, but in Africa's capitals. The $2 trillion shift is not just a number. It's a message, a declaration that the global South has risen. This is how Africa just beat the U.S. in trade and changed the balance of global power forever.